This is ChangeMakers with Katie Goar, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
This week's ChangeMaker is Mike Loftin, the Chief Executive Officer of Homewise. For over 3 decades, Mike has pioneered innovative solutions for affordable housing and home ownership in New Mexico. Under Mike's leadership, Homewise created a comprehensive model helping individuals and families achieve the dream of home ownership. Mike spearheaded Santa Fe's nationally recognized inclusionary zoning law, which served as a model for cities nationwide. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Let's start to get to know you before we start talking about Homewise. I'm curious how you got involved in affordable housing. You want to share a little bit with us what your on-ramp looked like?
Well, it's a long story, I think, but I went to college in Chicago. I grew up in Albuquerque, went to college in Chicago. Had a professor that was very interested in neighborhood stuff and kind of community development stuff, and a guy named John McKnight, well-known guy that talks about the capacity of neighborhoods, not just what their deficiencies are. And so anyway, that kind of turned me onto those issues. I became a community organizer in Chicago. And the thing is, if you're working in neighborhoods, you always bump up against housing issues. And one of the issues, one neighborhood I worked in, 22% of people own their own home, right? So neighborhoods have a really hard time proving themselves getting ahead if everybody's trying to leave it. And nobody's buying a home there and staying there and putting roots down and fighting for the neighborhood. So that's how I got into working on home ownership. Make neighborhoods better if you can increase the home ownership rate.
So then your journey eventually took you to Homewise, and you're based in New Mexico, correct?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about Homewise.
Yeah, so like in Chicago, I worked in disinvested neighborhoods that really needed to revitalize. When I came back to New Mexico and came to Santa Fe, it was the opposite, right? So if in disinvested neighborhoods, you can see a tide of money flowing out of the neighborhood, disinvesting. In Santa Fe, you had a tidal wave of money flowing into Santa Fe where home prices were getting crazy and people couldn't afford to live here. So when I first started here, I went and talked to a lot of the clients of the organization, which back then was called something else. And we did home improvement loans, mostly for elderly people on fixed incomes. And I asked, well, what else should we be doing? They go, I'm fine. I appreciate you helping me fix my roof, but why don't you help our kids buy a home because they've been priced out? So in Santa Fe, it was like there's generations after generation owning their own home. The first generation who can't do that anymore, it's kind of a bummer. So it's more than just an economic thing. It's more than just a lifestyle quality of life thing. It's a psychological, emotional thing. So we set about let's figure out how to increase home ownership in a very high cost area. Improve access to home ownership. So we've been doing that for 31 years now. It's been a really good journey. We've gotten really good at it. We really know how to help people buy a home and make it more affordable, make it more accessible, make sure they're sustainable. They're not getting in trouble. They're not getting a bad mortgage. They're getting a really good mortgage. So that's what we're really good at that.
So now that you've been in Santa Fe for quite a while here, it sounds like, how do people find you and how are people coming to you, or what's your recruitment strategy?
Well, in Santa Fe, when we changed our name from a name called Neighborhood Housing Services of Santa Fe, which no one could remember, to Homewise. And when we did that, we said, when people think about buying their first home, or they think about their kids buying their first home, we want them to think of Homewise. So in Santa Fe, that is pretty much true. I mean, we have huge word of mouth. People know who we are. We are by far the biggest market share of all mortgage lenders in Santa Fe. It's mostly first-time home buyers, mostly lower income buyers. So we've really built a brand and people know us. We still do social media. We do a lot with employers because employers know that if, for instance, the hospital knows that if their employees own a home, they stick around longer. They're more stable. So, we built a really good brand in Santa Fe. Albuquerque, we're newer to, been there maybe 10 years. And we're still building that brand. So social media is really important to us. We even have some billboards in Albuquerque. We do employer outreach. We're working a lot in the health sector, but other sectors as well. And then what we find is when you tell customer stories, like on social media, and somebody looks like you, and he's like, well, they could buy a home. Why can't I buy a home? Because one of the biggest barriers to buying a home is psychological. I don't think I can buy a home. That's not within the realm of possibility. If you can show, no, it might be in the realm of possibility, that's the first hump you got to get over.
Interesting. That psychological barrier, not a lot of people talk about that. And tell us a little more, when you have a person who comes in and says, can I buy a home? Should I buy a home? Like, how do you walk through some of those psychological barriers?
The philosophy here is a couple things. One is that very rarely do we say, no, you can't buy a home. The exception to that is when people's income is just so low. But then the other philosophy that we have is that we will match your motivation, right? So if you're on the fast lane and you want to work really hard at this, we're going to work hard with you. And let's get there. And then if you want to go on the slow lane, that's fine. Like you got to do it at your pace. So it's very centered on the client, right? That like, what do you want? What are your hopes and aspirations? Let's get there. So we look at the factors that affect whether you can get a good mortgage, which is your credit, your level of debt, and your savings. And those are all three things you can work on. You can reduce debt, you can improve credit, you can save more money. It may take a while, but you can methodically do that. And so we have what we call home purchase advisors that help people improve those factors and, get to what we would call buyer ready. And then once they're buyer ready, we're going to get you the best mortgage you can, which in our case is we call the Homewise mortgages. It's a conventional mortgage, the 80% loan to value on the first mortgage. That's important because then you don't have to pay for mortgage insurance, and we loan you the rest of the money. So we just split the financing into two pieces. That eliminates mortgage insurance. Over FHA, that's $120, $140 a month that you're saving. So that's a lot of money. If you get a $120 a month raise, you're happy. Or that helps you buy more house. So we're very good at the financing and where to leverage, where are the powerful places we can leverage your purchasing power and your ability to get into homeownership.
I'm really impressed by the impactful work that Homewise is doing in the community. You mentioned Santa Fe and Albuquerque. Are you in other areas, or are those your two primary markets?
We have offices in both Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and that's the bulk of our work is done there. But we serve the entire state of New Mexico. So,
okay.
But most of that service is remote, and we don't do all of our services there. For instance, in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, our business model is we can prepare you to buy a home. We do financial coaching. We put all the financing together and get rid of mortgage insurance. We do that everywhere. But we also have realtors on staff who are salaried and non-commissioned. So, you're free to work with a realtor if you already have a realtor you want to work with. But we provide those realtor services. One, people tend to like it because our realtors don't need to make a sale to pay their mortgage. They're going to pay the salary regardless. They spend the same amount of time with somebody who can only afford a $150,000 house than a $250,000 house. So we offer that. So we don't offer that service everywhere in the state. You need people on the ground. With the financing and the financial coaching we offer statewide.
That's a great feature, especially when you're talking about the value of the home and the motivation of the realtor. That really neutralizes that playing field for that new buyer. So I'm curious how your organization is funded.
The vast majority of our operating expenses we make from fees, right? So we're a social enterprise. We're a nonprofit, but we behave like a business. So we earn origination fees on the mortgage. We earn a real estate commission. The realtor doesn't. Because we have loans on our books, right? We have first and second mortgages. Most of the first mortgages we sell into the secondary market. Some we keep because they're not sellable. And second mortgages we all keep on our books. And so that we earn interest on that. We try to borrow money for cheaper than we loan it for. So we earn an interest spread that pays bills. The loans that we sell into the secondary market, we earn a service fee on those mortgages. We service about, $500 million worth of loans on the secondary market. So that brings in income from that. And then we raise philanthropic money and government grants. We try to put the vast majority of that money into growth, right? So we need equity in our balance sheets. And we have expansion, like we're trying to do 3 counties that we're trying to expand more rigorously into. We will use grant money to help us get the operations humming. And then innovations, like we're just launching, we got a grant from JP Morgan Chase actually to help us create this loan program that's like a consumer loan, but it also helps you save money. So while you're saving money, you're also building your credit. So that's an innovation. It's brand new. We're testing it now, but we needed money to get that going. So it's a combination of both.
Another innovative thing I read about you guys is that you have an educator fund. Tell us a little bit about that. It's super creative. A lot of people are just now trying to put this in their affordable housing package. Give us some, maybe how it started and what your goals are there.
This is a thing that many communities in America struggle with. It's like there's certain parts of the workforce that they're really important pieces of the workforce. Like we really need good teachers and educators. We need good nurses. We need, medical technicians. But they don't necessarily get paid a lot, and they struggle with their housing costs. So in this case, we've worked with educators for quite a while, and actually worked with the Santa Fe Public Schools a long time ago to put a down payment assistance fund together to help their people buy a home. Their teachers, change in administrations. I think there's less interest in that kind of stuff now, but because we have that history of doing that work, we have a donor in Santa Fe who's anonymous who said, like, I want you to keep doing that stuff, and we really need to help these educators. So that one donor has now donated a total of $800,000 to do down payment assistance for educators. We do have, people come forward and say, hey, how can I support you on this stuff? So that's really good. The hospital in Santa Fe is very good at providing down payment assistance and financial assistance to their employees. We're doing it with now, even a pizza chain, Mexico-based pizza chain we started working with to help their employees. Employers tend to get it, that their employees struggle with housing. If they didn't have to struggle with that, they're better employees and they grow.
Do you set a goal to how many people you want to serve a year, or do you just meet the need as it comes?
So we set a goal. This year, our fiscal year starts on April 1st. We have a weird fiscal year. With the goal for that, we just set those goals, 504 new homeowners. So that's households buying a home was the goal for next year. This year, and we've actually even exceeded 500 a year at different years. This last year, we're probably like 370, quite a bit lower than we typically would be. And I think that's a combination of a few things. Big one is interest rates, and home prices went up simultaneously during COVID, which is unusual. They usually go in opposite directions. So that's created a big affordability issue. We're optimistic on improving over that because interest rates are not lower. They're a little bit lower than they were, but they're stable. They're not going crazy the way they were, and home prices aren't going crazy anymore. So that gives people sit on the sidelines when things are confusing, right? They just, I don't do anything until I understand stuff. So now you're starting to see that calm down. You don't see the same bidding wars for a home that, that was really crazy. Now it's like you could actually offer below asking price and oftentimes get the house. So not a lot lower. It's still a very competitive market, and what we're hoping longer term is the interest rates start heading down. The threes were a very ahistorical thing. That's just not a normal thing. We're not going to go back to that. But gosh, if we got, into the fives, I think that'd be great.
You've mentioned a couple of the challenges to making homeownership more affordable and accessible. We've talked about credit, debt, savings, those kinds of ratios. And then now some of the market dynamics with the interest rates. Are there other challenges that are part of that menu of things that have to be overcome in order to make homeownership a reality?
Yeah, I think the very big one now in most parts of the country, not the whole country, is housing supply. We're just not building enough housing. We never got back to building what we needed to after the Great Recession. So there's a big shortage. We're seeing, it took a while for the roosters to come home the roost, whatever the expression is. It took a while for us to really see that. And now we're really seeing in COVID, it just kind of exploded on us, that problem. And so we're doing a lot to step up our home building efforts and doing, we typically build about 50 homes a year. We're trying to get that up to 100. Typically focused on new construction in Santa Fe because it's such a high cost market. Albuquerque has historically been more affordable, but that's not true anymore. It's not as unaffordable as Santa Fe. But the median price there is like, $340, I want to say. It used to be finding a home below 200 was not a problem. That's gotten harder. So we're starting to do more subdivision scale. And I think this is something that we need housing policy that says we need to increase supply.
Speaking of public policy, what do you think should be part of the overall package for prioritizing homeownership? Do you think it is creating organizations like yours? Is it providing more down payment assistance? Is it, some more, interest mortgage packages? What if you were to brainstorm what public policy needs to accomplish this homeownership goal of making it more accessible, what would that look like?
So, if we're going to make homeownership more accessible to the people historically it's not been accessible to, which tends to be lower income households and people of color. The black homeownership rate in 1968, when we passed the Fair Housing Act, was 42%, maybe 43 to 44% today. It's that's not good. So if we're going to increase access to people who've been left behind, then we need a delivery system that knows how to do that. And I don't think so. It's not a silver bullet mortgage product. It's not some big sweeping policy. I think we really do need to build more organizations like Homewise that really knows where are people, what are they struggling with. In some communities, it's like the way people were able to buy a home was with contracts for sale, which are like owner financing, and they're really bad, unfavorable contracts to people. That's been true in the African American community. It's true much of the Hispanic community today. We got somebody has to have the ability to get in there and know there's a better way to do this and have the good money chase out the bad money. Means some people have barriers because of credit, debt, and savings. How do we work on that? Many people have nobody in their family's ever owned a home. They don't think they can either. So again, it's that psychological barrier. How do we get to those folks? So we do, in the Black community in Albuquerque, we do a lot of outreach through the church because there needs to be an institution of credibility say, no, you can do this. Some employers can play that same role. So it's real on the ground work that needs to happen. It's retail work. It's not some just big policy change that's going to fix it all. I think community development financial institutions, I think, which are community development credit unions and organizations like Homewise, I think we should, that's a program housed in the Department of Treasury. I think we should greatly expand that. And I think we should have a set aside for groups that are doing home ownership work. We need to increase access to home ownership. We should have, a home ownership finance fund dedicated to closing the home ownership gap in America and building that retail infrastructure. One really important thing, because even if we add to housing supply, and even if we have more down payment assistance, if the people who've been left behind can't access it and don't know how to access it, not going to close the gap.
Those are some very tangible ways of closing that racial wealth gap, and homeownership is a path to make that happen. Okay, Mike, stand by. We have to stop here, but next time on ChangeMakers, Mike Loftin will talk about the long-term impact of his work at Homewise.
We figured out a really good way how to do this that creates long-term success, which means those folks are getting ahead, which is what this is all about. We're about can we help Americans get ahead? Can we build the middle class? What America has made America great is we have this solid middle class. We've got to get back to those basics.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Goar. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.